for light speed.
No, light speed is too slow.
You're right, sir. There's a secret entrance here.
You're gonna pay it or else.
Think you know Spaceballs? Think again. Behind the laughs. This 1987 cult classic was a war zone of last-minute rewrites, fried electronics, melted cheese monsters, and legendary improvisation that nearly broke the crew from legal calls with George Lucas to scenes so chaotic they shut down production. Spaceballs didn't just spoof sci-fi, it redefined it, and the truth behind the jokes. Way crazier than fiction. Buckle up, because these 20 shocking facts will change the way you see this iconic parody forever. This isn't just a movie, it's movie history gone off the rails before a single frame was shot. Mel Brooks faced a dilemma. He wanted to spoof the biggest movie franchise in the world, Star Wars, but that came with a serious risk. George Lucas, the mastermind behind Lucasfilm, wasn't exactly known for laughing at parodies of his work. So Brooks did the unthinkable. He picked up the phone and asked Lucas directly for permission. The answer, yes, but with one very strict condition. Absolutely no Spaceballs merchandise, no toys, no action figures, no branding. To most filmmakers, that would have been a deal breaker, but not for Mel Brooks. Instead of sulking, he used that restriction as fuel. He turned it into one of the movie's funniest running gags, fake products like Spaceballs, the t-shirt Spaceballs, the breakfast cereal, and the now legendary Spaceballs, the flamethrower. Ironically, these fictional items became more iconic than many real movie products of the time. With George Lucas's cautious blessing, filming began, but disaster struck early. The budget, originally intended to deliver massive space battles and Star Wars-level effects, got slashed midway through production. Gone were the plans for sleek ships and massive cosmic landscapes. In their place, plastic models, toy-like spacecraft, and sets that looked more like a high school stage than a Hollywood blockbuster. But again, Mel Brooks leaned into it. He didn't try to hide the cheapness, he showcased it. He called it the cheapest Galaxy ever put on film, and to everyone's surprise, it worked. The scrappy visuals only enhanced the parody, making the jokes land even harder. At the heart of Spaceballs was one of the most absurd villains ever created, Dark Helmet. But here's the twist, most of Dark Helmet's dialogue wasn't even written. Actor Rick Moranis, who wore the oversized helmet and ridiculous cape, improvised nearly every single line. That high-pitched, nasally voice, totally made up on set. The temper tantrums and sarcastic comebacks, all him. Moranis said playing Dark Helmet was like unleashing every childhood tantrum he ever held in. The result, comedy gold. The crew couldn't keep straight faces on more than one occasion. They had to stop shooting because camera operators were shaking with laughter. But Mel Brooks didn't stay behind the camera. He cast himself into roles: President Scroop, the incompetent leader of Planet Spaceball, and Yogurt, the mystical, Yoda-like guardian of the Schwartz. Playing Yogurt came at a cost. The makeup was thick, the gold paint burned his skin, the suit was so heavy, he could barely move. He could only shoot for a few hours a day before overheating. But Brooks refused to hand the role to anyone else, because for him, comedy was about control. He needed to be the one delivering the punchlines, down to the last joke. Not all characters in Spaceballs were so easy to work with, especially not Pizza the Hut. What looked like a hilarious, greasy mob boss on screen was a horror show behind the scenes. The costume was a nightmare: rubber, melted cheese, and buckets of fake sauce. The actor inside, Richard Carle, could only stay in the suit for minutes before overheating. It reeked like microwave garbage. After every take, the crew had to scrape the goo off the floor and peel cheese off the walls. The smell was so bad, people gagged. But in the end, the gross-out effect worked. Pizza the Hut became one of the most unforgettable and stomach-turning characters in comedy history. And then came one of the most hilariously improvised scenes in the entire film, the jammed radar. When Dark Helmet yells, "There's only one man who would dare give me the raspberry, Lone Star." None of that was in the script. The cast came up with it on the spot. The crew actually used real raspberry jam and smeared it across the radar equipment. It was so thick it clogged the vents and shorted the electronics. They had to shut down production just to clean up. But that gooey mess turned into one of the most beloved gags in the entire movie. Another fan-favorite character was Barf, the lovable, half-man, half-dog sidekick, played by the legendary John Candy. Barf was more than comic relief, he was the emotional core of the movie. But the costume, brutal. The fur trapped heat, the tail was remote-controlled. The ears moved on motors under the hot studio lights. It was like wearing an oven. Kenny often had to be hosed down between takes to avoid passing out. Yet not once did he complain. He even improvised the now famous line, "I'm a Mog, half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend." Kenny poured love into that role and audiences felt it. And let's not forget Dot Matrix, the golden robot bodyguard with an attitude. But she wasn't played by just one person. Comedian Joan Rivers voiced the character, giving her razor-sharp sass. Meanwhile, mime Lorene Yarnell wore the bulky robot suit and performed all the movements on set. The two women never met, but together, they brought Dot Matrix to life. The result was C-3PO's sassier, sharper cousin, a robot with bite. The demands from the studio didn't stop. Executives kept begging Mel Brooks for more visual gags. Soldiers combing the desert with actual, massive combs. It was ridiculous. One of the combs even cracked during filming and had to be taped together. But the sight of troops dragging plastic combs through endless sand became one of the most quoted scenes in the entire movie. Sometimes, the dumbest ideas are the ones that stick. Not every actor walked away from Spaceballs with only laughter and good memories. For Daphne Zuniga, the experience became one she could practically smell years later. Cast as the spoiled yet sharp-tongued Princess Vespa, Zuniga was handed one of the most physically revolting challenges in the entire production. In one particularly absurd scene, her character plunges face-first into a giant tub of yogurt. And no, it wasn't fake. Foam-based Hollywood yogurt, it was the real deal. Thick, sour, cold. And as the hours drag on, absolutely rancid. What started off as merely unpleasant soon spiraled into a nauseating nightmare, take after take. The yogurt's used as a stand-in for the mysterious, gooey substance in the film absorbed heat from the intense set lights and the actors' body temperatures. It didn't take long before it turned warm, sticky, and horrifyingly smelly. By midday, the entire studio reeked like a refrigerator left unplugged for a month in the middle of summer. The once edible treat became a sour, festering mess that clung to everything it touched. The worst of it fell on Daphne Zuniga. The yogurt seeped into her hair, clung to her costume, and lodged itself in every crevice imaginable. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was revolting. And yet, Zuniga powered through it like a consummate professional. She never complained on camera. She never broke character. She never stormed off set. She endured every gross moment with quiet determination. But when the cameras finally stopped rolling and the scene wrapped, Zuniga made a silent vow, never again. She reportedly swore off yogurt for years. In interviews, she's often joked that she still can't walk down the dairy aisle without flinching. Even the smell of it, she says, can make her gag. Yet, it's this level of commitment from both cast and crew that helps cement Spaceballs as the cult classic it is today. The film didn't earn its legendary status by playing it safe. Behind its absurdity was a boldness that defined every decision, take. For example, one of its most controversial and now celebrated moments, the movie within a movie gag. In a sequence so ridiculous it borders on surreal, the characters sit down to watch Spaceballs, the movie inside Spaceballs. The movie, it's a complete fourth wall demolition. At one point, the villains use the VHS tape to locate the heroes in real time by fast-forwarding and rewinding. The movie, they're literally inside. It's a mind-bending, self-aware loop of comedy gold. Studio executives were horrified. They feared audiences would be confused, turned off by the surreal humor. They begged Mel Brooks to remove the scene entirely. And as for George Lucas, the one person who could have shut down the entire production with a single legal letter, he loved it. After viewing a rough cut, he called it a loving spoof of his Star Wars saga. Not only did Lucas give his blessing, but Lucasfilm even offered technical advice during post-production. That unexpected support gave Brooks the confidence to push the parody even further, turning Spaceballs into the comedy classic we still laugh at today. Spaceballs didn't fade after its 1987 release. It only grew. Today, it's a certified cult phenomenon. Fans quote it endlessly. They cosplay as Dark Helmet and name their pets after Barf. Every lead actor was gifted a Schwartz ring after filming, a token of the magic they helped create. And Rick Moranis, he still has his. Sometimes, he even wears it to conventions. For him and for fans across generations, it's not just a ring, it's a piece of cinematic history. And there you have it, the untold chaos, genius, and absurdity behind Spaceballs. From melted monsters to Meet a Madness, this film rewrote the rules of parody. Still quoted, still beloved, and still hilarious decades later. May the Schwartz be with you, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the madness. Thanks for watching.